Today's case is one that I covered almost 2 years ago. However, I didn't cover it super in depth, and since then, more information has come out regarding the case. It's one that is still very much so active and has left many people with more questions than answers, and the fear that answers may not ever come, to be quite honest. We're going to break down all of the information today in the Jennifer Dulos case from 2019. Now, I just want to give you guys a heads up. This case has got a lot of twists and turns, and it's pretty complex. So my hope is that with the way that I've broken it down for you, it will be much easier to understand than so much that has been put out there in the media. You may have also been familiar with this case because a lot of the people in the media have dubbed it as the Gone Girl case. There's new information, new updates that have come out just a few months ago, so I'm going to break everything down for you start to finish to figure out what really happened to Jennifer Dulos. Hey guys, my name is Elise. This is 10 to Life. Let's jump right in.
This is 10 to Life with Elise.
Before we get into today's case, I want to take a moment to talk with you about today's sponsor, Scentbird. Summer season is the time for having fun, for traveling, trying new things, so why not try something new in your self-care routine? Like, for example, finding a new summer scent. Now, of course, you don't want to buy a full-size bottle for just a few months. So what's great about Scentbird is you can sign up and receive up to 3 travel-size scents monthly. Each one comes in this cute, sleek little case, and the best part is each one is a 30-day supply. Scentbird lets you choose a new designer or niche fragrance to try every month for just $17. Every month, you get to pick what you want to receive too, so there are no surprises. They have all the name brands too, like Prada, Dolce, Gucci, but what's also great is Scentbird carries a lot of amazing niche scents, so you can find your favorite and smell unique. I already tried all of the designer scents with Scentbird, and now I'm getting into the nitty-gritty and like getting into those niche brands like Confessions of a Rebel, Perfumes de Marly, and DS and Durga, and just so many more. This month, I received Yesterday by Room 1015, Zest for Life by Kenzie, and Brit Sheer by Burberry. Now, I chose these fragrances because they have a lot of different notes of florals, they smell fresh, and really just kind of remind me of summertime. Plus, you can never go wrong with a little Burberry in your life. Even better, I started getting so many compliments on how great I smelled. Use my coupon code AnnieElise55 for 55% off at Scentbird, and it's just a little over $7 for your first month. And it's available in the USA and Canada. Make sure to use my coupon code AnnieElise55 for 55% off your first month. 50-year-old Jennifer Farber Dulos was born on September 27, 1968 in New York City. She was born to her parents Gloria and Hilliard. She was their second child and was someone who really completed their family and made it feel whole. She was extremely smart growing up and ended up even attending Brown University for her undergrad. Her family also had some notoriety due to the fact that her maternal aunt is Elizabeth Claiborne, who founded the company better known as Liz Claiborne, a huge staple and icon in the makeup and skin and beauty industry. So after graduating from Brown in 1990, Jennifer later went on to earn her master's degree in writing from New York University Tisch School of the Arts. While in school at Brown, Jennifer had met a man named Fotis Dulos, who was also attending the university. Fotis was born in Turkey, and he grew up in Athens, Greece, before he ended up moving to the States in 1986. He also graduated from Brown in 1989, a year ahead of Jennifer, and he later received a master's degree in finance from Columbia Business School. Now, although Jennifer and Fotis first met at Brown, their connection to each other was not immediate. Fotis met a fellow Brown graduate named Hilary Vanessa Aldama, and the two of them got married in Athens in June of the year 2000. Now, this marriage between the two of them lasted 4 years before the couple finally divorced in July of 2004. So now, 2004 was a big year for Fotis. He got divorced in July, and he also founded 4 Group Inc., which was a real estate development company specializing in luxury homes out of Connecticut. But he also ended up getting married again, this time to Jennifer, and they got married just 1 month after the divorce with Hillary was finalized. Fotis and Hillary's marriage, though, ended fairly smoothly. The couple had no children together, and they had filed for a no-fault divorce, meaning that there was no blame or fault, and the marriage ultimately ended due to the breakdown of the marriage or irreconcilable differences. It is also one of the easiest ways to file for divorce. Though there was no finger pointing in the filings of the divorce, it has been noted that Fotis was emailing Jennifer while he was still married to Hillary, which does make sense based on the timeline of their marriage happening so quickly after his divorce was finalized. So after the new couple got married, they moved to Farmington, Connecticut, which is where the couple ended up having 5 children together, including 2 sets of twins. A lot to take care of and a big whirlwind of a romance and marriage. So as I mentioned earlier, Jennifer had a master's in writing, and it was also something that she absolutely loved to do. This led to Jennifer starting her own blog, which was called 5 Makes 7, referring to her 5 children, making the family of 7 a whole. During this time, blogging was also extremely popular, and it was kind of like the old school version of YouTubers and TikTokers sharing their lives in depth on the internet, just more so in text format, and maybe a few pictures here and there. So having her own blog allowed her to be a stay-at-home mom while also still earning an income. And it also helped that since they had children, she had a specific niche and topic to talk about in her blog. In her blog, she talked in depth about her marriage to Fotis, her children, parenting stories, and just her life, really, in general. So in 2012, Jennifer began writing about what her viewers interpreted as trouble in her marriage. And she wrote things like, and I quote, "I wish I were a strong person and that confrontation did not both scare and appall me." So despite these posts that might almost seem like warning signs, it wasn't until 5 years later in June of 2017 that Jennifer ultimately ended up filing for a divorce against Fotis. Now, this divorce was far from the simple and easy divorce between Fotis and Hillary, and it was very, very intricate from the start. As soon as Jennifer filed for divorce, she also sought for an emergency custody order of the 5 children that they shared together. Jennifer claimed in these orders that she was scared for her children's safety. And she also alleged that Fotis had even previously threatened that he would kidnap their children and take them overseas. Because remember, he grew up in Turkey, or he was born in Turkey and then moved and grew up in Athens. So he has a lot of ties elsewhere internationally. So this apparently was a big fear of Jennifer's. Fotis's response to this custody order, though, of course, was that her accusations were baseless, and he claimed that her use of antidepressants made her unfit to have sole custody of their children. Now, this was just the beginning of a long and tedious divorce and custody battle between the two of them, and it would last over 2 years. In March of 2017, Jennifer claimed that she had learned of Fotis being unfaithful in the marriage for at least a year, and he apparently had been unfaithful with a 44-year-old woman named Michelle Troconis, which was a fact that Fotis did not dispute in court, actually. So once the couple separated, they decided in court that Jennifer and the kids would move into her parents' home in Pound Ridge, New York. They made mutual plans to enroll the kids into a private school in New Canaan, which is also where Jennifer soon after rented a house. Throughout court proceedings, Jennifer began sharing some of her concerns, such as Fotis recently buying a handgun that he kept in the house and claiming that she was worried he would use it to hurt her or the kids. But Fotis denied that he had ever even threatened Jennifer, adding that he had also never threatened to kidnap the kids, saying that Jennifer was actually the one who had moved the kids from her parents' house into the house that she was now renting. He also claimed that Jennifer had kept important information from him, such as switching the kids' pediatricians and signing up one of their sons for hockey without informing him. So the filings were really like just flying back and forth between the two of them. and they had both at one point filed numerous motions saying that the other was disparaging them. Fotis once claimed that Jennifer had called him a psychopath who didn't care about his children and didn't work hard enough to make money for their family. Jennifer once claimed that Fotis had called her an unfit mother who should be locked away. So all in all, it's very clear that the marriage seemed to be very toxic, and the post-separation period was also extremely, extremely toxic. During the early stages of their divorce, Jennifer had even written in documents, and I quote, "I know that filing for divorce and filing this motion will enrage him. I know he will try to retaliate by trying to harm me in some way." At the beginning of 2018, Jennifer again filed for an emergency custody order, and the judge found that Fotis had broken numerous court orders. So Jennifer was awarded sole physical custody of all 5 children in March of 2018. Although she had sole physical custody, both parents were to share joint legal custody, which allowed Fotis supervised visitations and monitored phone calls. So during this toxic divorce and custody battle, Jennifer's mother, Gloria Farber, actually sued Fotis. It was after Jennifer's father's death in early 2018 that Gloria sued Fotis for $1.7 million, claiming that he had taken a personal loan from them and failed to pay them back. Because remember, the family had generational wealth. So fast forward now to 2019. On May 24th, 2019, the day started like any normal day would. Jennifer got up, got her kids ready for school, and dropped them off at New Canaan Country School. She was seen arriving back home from dropping them off at 8:05 a.m. Just hours later, though, Jennifer had missed 2 doctor's appointments that she had scheduled for 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. in New York City. This was not like Jennifer at all. However, we know that people miss doctor's appointments all the time, and the commute from Connecticut into New York City, although it is a short one, sometimes it can get backed up, sometimes it can take longer, so there were no red flags thrown up just yet. It wasn't until 7 p.m. that night when 2 of her close friends filed a missing persons report due to not having any contact with her. One of those friends was Lauren Almeida, who was not only her close friend, but also her nanny. Lauren had initially shown up to the New Canaan house around 11:30 a.m. that day. Jennifer, though, was nowhere to be seen at that point. But Lauren thought nothing of it, since she knew that she did have those doctor's appointments at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. that day. What she did find as odd, though, was that Jennifer's Range Rover was still in the garage and her Chevy Suburban was missing. Now, the reason she felt this to be odd was because she knew her friend, and she knew that she would have taken the Range Rover to her appointments in the city. She wouldn't have taken the big Suburban. So once the day came and went, and her 2 friends never heard from her, they filed a missing persons report, claiming that it was out of Jennifer's character to leave home without telling anyone, especially with 5 children to take care of. So police arrived at the home in Connecticut and immediately found traces of blood spatter on the floor, the door, and the walls in the garage, as well as in the kitchen and the interior of her Range Rover. DNA tests came back that the majority of the blood that was found was Jennifer's, with the exception of blood found on the kitchen faucet, which was a mixture of blood from Jennifer and none other than her ex-husband, Fotis Dulos. So now you have blood, you have what appears to be a struggle that happened and at least a crime scene at the minimum. You also have a mixture of the DNA, and now you have surveillance footage. Because the same neighbor's camera that captured Jennifer coming home at 8:05 a.m. also caught Jennifer's Suburban leaving at around 10 a.m. that morning. Investigators believed that this was not Jennifer driving the car. Due to the toxic and tumultuous divorce and the fact that Fotis's DNA was found in the home, police began watching his movements very, very closely. That same evening that Jennifer disappeared, Fotis was later caught on security cameras dumping black garbage bags and other items all along Albany Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. Upon seeing this footage, detectives immediately went to the location and they found clothing that was Jennifer's size, as well as ponchos and zip ties in the bags. All of the items that were found were covered in blood, which matched Jennifer's DNA. Now, in another angle of the surveillance clip, a woman could be seen bending out of the passenger side of the truck while Fotis is throwing the bags away. And that woman was later identified as Fotis' girlfriend, Michelle Troconis. Michelle is a mother to one daughter. She was also the woman that Jennifer claimed Fotis had been cheating on her with when she first filed for divorce in 2017. So the fact that she had been spotted in the car with Fotis while he was disposing of what seemed to be evidence now changed everything. On May 25th, the day after Jennifer went missing, Lauren, who was Jennifer's friend and nanny, was part of an interview that recalled multiple events where she personally saw Jennifer seemingly afraid of Fotis. She spoke on an incident that occurred in June of 2017 when she arrived at the home to find Jennifer crying in their driveway. When she asked her what was wrong, Jennifer had told her that Fotis had tried to run her over and that she had to move out of the way. That same summer, Lauren said she saw Fotis chasing Jennifer through the house. Jennifer ran into the bedroom and barricaded herself, but it wasn't until Fotis realized that Lauren and one of their kids were also in the room with her that he finally calmed down. Jennifer's lawyer told investigators that just 1 week before Jennifer went missing, Fotis had once again lost another attempt at getting unsupervised visitation. Lauren told police that that very night that Jennifer went missing, Fotis had asked her to bring the kids to him the following day. Now, luckily, Lauren was smart enough to tell him absolutely not, and that she would need direct instructions from the police to do so, because had he then gained access to the children after Jennifer went missing, he easily could have fled, could have gone international, and those kids may never have been seen again. So Lauren also mentioned that the whole interaction was odd since she was never involved in picking up or dropping the kids off. So again, was this a possible attempt to use someone who might not think anything of it and to get the kids and then possibly run? You guys can be the judge of that. So while the police were now watching Fotis, they were also doing everything they could possibly do to find Jennifer. They searched numerous properties and numerous bodies of water near Farmington, where Fotis was living at the time, but there were no signs of Jennifer anywhere. On June 1st, 2019, both Fotis and Michelle were arrested at a hotel in Avon, Connecticut, and they were charged with tampering of evidence and hindering prosecution. At the time they were arrested, not enough evidence was found to bring any more serious charges that involved a possible homicide.
Charges in this case. I'm unaware that there will be any in the near term. As a matter of law, in fact, I don't think the evidence is sufficient to support such charges. But yet, here we go. Exhibits 1 through 50, or however many reporters are in here today, they're all going to write about the missing mom and Mr. Dulos and the suspicions about him. At what point does he lose the right to stand up and say, I'm presumed innocent, and if you're going to talk, I'm going to talk back? Or again, in the family courts up in Hartford, there is a lawyer who is engaged in a divorce with his wife, and Mr. Dulos is reported to have tried to broker a meeting between the two of them. Headline, Stanford Advocate. Dulos offers room as sex pad, the lawyer. I did a quick double take when I read that story. I'm thinking, really? Lawyer, troubled marriage, sex pad? I don't want my wife to read that. Then I was relieved to find out it wasn't about me. We're not going to sit back silently and be crucified in the press. It's just not going to happen. And 3.6b does not require it to. Indeed, I would take the position that I have an obligation on Mr. Dulos' behalf to fight back, and we will fight back.
Both Fotis and Michelle pled not guilty and were shortly after released on bond. A judge granted temporary custody of their 5 children to Jennifer's mother, where they stayed in her 2-bedroom, 1,500-square-foot apartment. In July of 2019, the media discovered that Jennifer's mother, Gloria Farber, had been paying the monthly mortgage and property taxes on Jennifer and Fotis' home in Farmington, even after Jennifer had moved out and rented her new home, and now Michelle was living in that home with Fotis. So basically, he was just mooching off his former mother-in-law at that point, after already taking out that personal loan of $1.7 million. Now, Fotis also spoke out in an interview in July.
What do you want people watching to know?
I want them to know that this is a very, very challenging time for my whole family, and we just have to be patient to get to the other side and see what happens.
Do you have any message for Jennifer's family?
Yes, I send my prayers. I had my differences with Jennifer, like many people do when they go through a marriage. It didn't work out for us, but that doesn't mean that I wish her ill in any way.
So yeah, because people automatically say, "Oh yeah," people say the spouse did it.
I know, but I know what I've done and I know what I haven't done. So I have to stand and fight and hope that the truth is going to come out.
Do you have any thoughts about that, about her disappearance or what's happened?
I do, but I'd rather not speak about that today,
But at some point,
some point.
before she disappeared, what was your relationship with Jennifer?
As you know, we were in a very contentious divorce that was fueled by her attorneys.
Were you speaking on the phone?
We're speaking on the phone, yes.
And it was cordial.
And we also met a couple of times when we would have drop-offs for the kids. Yes, it was very cordial. 2 days before she disappeared, she invited me to play basketball at her house with the kids.
When people speculate that you wanted Jennifer out of the way, how do you respond to that?
Well, that's ludicrous because I never wanted Jennifer out of the way. Even if I could get sole custody, I would still not take it because I would want my children to have a relationship with their mother.
You wanted
because I
them.
care about the children.
But that is interesting that, because the perception is contentious, ugly divorce and a motive clearly to do something.
My motive has been for the past 2 years to move on with my life. I have 5 beautiful children. I had Michelle.
In September of 2019, Michelle and Fotis were arrested again on a tampering with evidence charge. However, they both again quickly bonded out. In October of 2019, Michelle's family finished helping move her and her daughter out of the home that they were living in with Fotis at the time. Now, part of the bond conditions was no contact between Michelle and Fotis. It was quiet for a couple of months, but then on January 7th, 2020, Fotis was arrested in his home in Farmington, and this time he was charged with capital murder, and kidnapping in relation to Jennifer's disappearance. Michelle was also arrested that same day and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. She pled not guilty. Kent Mawhinney, an attorney and friend of Fotis's, was also charged, which kind of surprised everybody. He was charged with conspiracy to commit murder as well, and he was also accused of creating a fake alibi for Fotis. Then, in a really surprising twist, there was also a makeshift grave that had been found. It was found on the property of the Windsor Rod and Gun Club. 2 hunters found this makeshift grave hole, as well as 2 bags of limes. This was a hunting club that Fotis's attorney and friend Kent had founded. And even though Kent had left the club, his cell phone data had shown him near the property, and a witness had said that Kent reached out trying to figure out how to get on the property and was told about a secret key. When it was realized that Kent was tied to the Jennifer case, those people called in about that grave. Canines were taken there, but no body or any evidence of one ever being there was found. It hasn't been proven that he dug this grave, but police have said that he is in fact connected to it. So besides the alleged involvement with Jennifer, Kent also has a very sketchy history of his own. Kent's wife claimed that she was once fearful of Fotis and Kent possibly plotting something against her, because she had reported Kent for taking advantage of her sexually, and he was arrested for that as well as disorderly conduct. He was then arrested a second time for violating the protection order that kept him away from his wife. So it seems like these 2 scumbags really forged a friendship and bond together, and both had some pretty questionable behavior at best. So Kent had Fotis reach out to her to arrange a meeting at the Dulos family home where they could reconnect, and his wife was worried that it was a setup, all to kill her. During the time that they were out on bail and during their subsequent arrest, police were putting together a timeline and theory because they were not so convinced of the couple's innocence. Now, if you'll remember, neighbors of Jennifer caught her Suburban leaving the home earlier that morning at around 10:30 a.m. Her vehicle was later found abandoned near Waveney Park. Police believe that on May 24, 2019, Fotis took an employee's Toyota Tacoma truck without their permission and drove into New Canaan, Connecticut. Police discovered footage on a school bus camera passing the truck at 7:57 a.m. near Waveney Park, which was only about 100 feet away from where Jennifer's vehicle would be found abandoned later. In another surveillance camera clip, a bike is seen in the back of the truck, leading investigators to believe that the truck was parked at that park, that Fotis biked 3 miles to Jennifer's home, then arrived back at the park, but this time in Jennifer's vehicle. Now, as we know, Jennifer was seen arriving home after dropping off the kids around 8:05 a.m., which is where investigators believe Fotis was waiting for her arrival to attack her as soon as she got home. Police believe he spent the next couple of hours cleaning as best as he could, despite the evidence that he ultimately left behind. When Jennifer's Suburban is seen leaving at 10:30 a.m., Fotis is suspected to be the driver, while Jennifer's deceased or unconscious body was also in the vehicle. Police suspect that he then drove to that park and transferred the body into the truck. The truck is seen on footage driving north back home toward his home in Farmington. The next pieces of the theory were harder for investigators to form until Michelle, Fotis' girlfriend, finally spoke up. Michelle received 3 immediate interviews in which she told the investigators that she and Fotis had lunch together the afternoon of the 24th, and then they went to clean one of his properties for a client meeting. 5 days after Jennifer disappeared, that Tacoma was seen on surveillance cameras being driven by Fotis once again, and not far behind him was Michelle in a Yukon following him. The two drove to a local car wash and detail shop, and Fotis is seen in the car wash lobby as he drops off the truck to be detailed and then gets into the Yukon with Michelle. As if everything he has done up to this point wasn't sketchy enough, he was also caught on camera taking out cash to pay for the car detailing in an attempt to allegedly make it as untraceable as possible. Despite their efforts in getting the car detailed, Jennifer's DNA was still found on the passenger seat of the car. During Michelle's interviews, she was seen being extremely emotional and pleading with officers to believe her and that she didn't do it and that she would do anything.
We think you have information that can help.
Oh, yeah, I love John, but I can walk the whole world with you if you want. I can take you to like the motor place. I can walk, I can spend a month with you guys. I can do whatever you want, but I didn't do it.
Now, here's what really angers me in a lot of this. Despite all of the evidence and all of the charges against him, Fotis continually was allowed to make bail. So again, Fotis had been allowed a bond. This time it was set at $6 million, and he somehow was able to come up with the money. And when he was released the following day, he was given orders to not speak to his children or the nanny and to return back to court on February 28th. Fotis' attorney, Norm Pattis, told reporters, and I quote, "We very much want to try this case. Mr. Dulos wants to clear his name. There does not appear to be a crime scene weapon. There's no body. What we have is a suspicious disappearance and an entirely circumstantial case."
It's been a very tough time for the whole family. We're all very worried about Jennifer.
How do you think the public looks at you?
It depends. I think that the people that do not know me, they probably look at me as a monster.
As a monster?
Yes. And that is because of the information that has come out, and I cannot speak about what happened. So they take the narrative that they see from the arrest warrants and what is being reported in the press, and they draw their own conclusions. So I've already been convicted in their mind.
What do you want people watching to know?
I want them to know that this is a very, very challenging time for my whole family, and we just have to be patient to get to the other side.
So yeah, because people automatically say, "Oh yeah," people say the spouse did it.
Mm-hmm. I know, but I know what I've done, and I know what I haven't done. So I have to stand and fight and hope that the truth is going to come out.
So in this statement, and what they're kind of trying to paint the picture to be, is similar to the book and movie Gone Girl. That it was an elaborate disappearance that may have even been set up by Jennifer. They're trying to bring that question into play. Is she really dead? Did she set this up herself? She's still alive. There's no body. There's no weapon. All of these things. Even though there's blood and what appears to be a crime scene, could she have done that? They're trying to build doubt and trying to also lean on the Gone Girl situation of it all, because that had just come out a few years prior, I believe it was. So it just angers me because they're casting doubt in Jennifer's disappearance and almost trying to paint her as the villain in a sense. But also the fact that he continues to make bail, it just, to me, demonstrates a level of privilege. Although the bond amount was set at $6 million, it was clear that this family and these people had access to large amounts of wealth. So in my opinion, that should have been a restriction. There shouldn't have been any sort of way to get out, especially when this was not the first arrest. It in fact was, I believe, the third at this point. It just really angers me. So while Fotis was out on bail this time, an emergency bond hearing was set for January 28th, 2020. January 28th came around and Fotis failed to show up for his hearing. Police immediately went to his home in Farmington, where they found Fotis, but they found him unresponsive. Upon arriving to the scene, they found that he had poisoned himself with carbon monoxide by running a vacuum cleaner hose from the exhaust pipe of his SUV into the interior of his car, where it was parked in his garage. First responders performed a CPR and got a faint pulse and transported him by ambulance to Connecticut Medical Center in Farmington, where he was then airlifted to Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx, and there he was to undergo hyperbaric oxygen therapy. His 5 children that he had shared with Jennifer, who were now in between the ages of 8 and 13 years old at the time, were allowed to visit him and see him one last time before he was taken off life support and ultimately passed away. He was officially pronounced dead on January 30th, 2020 at 52 years old.
Fotis Dulos was declared dead tonight at 5:32. His family came in from Greece and decided today to donate his organs so that he will live on in some form in the assistance that he can provide to others in their own individual struggles. The family is adamant that his name be cleared. As we are speaking, we have filed an unusual motion in the Connecticut courts asking to substitute an estate for Fotis Dulos for him as a defendant, to force the state to show its hand in a trial filled with evidence we think that amounts to no more than innuendo and unsupported suspicion. So if you check the court pleadings, you'll see a motion to substitute the estate of Fotis Dulos for Mr. Dulos. It'll be a difficult challenge to persuade the state of Connecticut to go forward with a trial in the absence of a defendant. But having maligned the man for all time from coast to coast, and if not there, around the world, we're asking for the right to clear his name. We intend to proceed on as if he were alive to vindicate him, because we think he's wrongfully accused, and we'll be seeking the discovery that we were supposed to get just the other day, supposed to begin getting just the other day. So it's been a truly horrific day for the family, filled with difficult decisions, medical tests, and meeting the requirements to determine death. Having said that, we want to thank everybody for their interest. And as to those who contend that Mr. Dulos' death reflects a consciousness of guilt, we say no. We say it was more a conscience overborne with the weight of a world that was too busy to listen and that wanted a story more than it wanted the truth.
Now, Fotis left a note behind in his car, still pleading his innocence by writing, "I refuse to spend even an hour in jail for something I had nothing to do with." So this, of course, got many people talking and many people speculating. Did Fotis attempt and succeed in taking his own life because he knew that he was about to be convicted, charged, all of the things in attachment with Jennifer's murder, and he wanted to take the quote-unquote easy way out? Or did he do this because he didn't want his children to know that he had in fact killed their mother and his ex-wife? The note also brought a lot of different opinions and feelings out because many people thought this wasn't truly a note left behind declaring his innocence, but it was rather a narcissistic note. Although all signs point to him being involved, him still saying, I had nothing to do with it, and really taking the secret to his grave and not wanting his children to ever find out about it. But what do you think? So really quickly, after separating from Michelle, Fotis apparently had gotten into a new relationship with a woman named Anna Curry. Police reports state that Anna was at his house with him the morning of his suicide, and Anna claims that they both had plans to drive to the courthouse for that emergency hearing together. But last minute, Fotis told her that they should drive separately. Anna claims that on her way to the courthouse, Fotis's lawyer Norm called her asking where his client was. Anna told him that they were driving separately, but that they were both on their way. Norm then responded that it couldn't be possible since Fotis's GPS ankle monitor was showing that he was still at the home. So when he didn't show is when officers went for a wellness check. And then they, of course, discovered him in the garage in his car. In March of 2020, just 2 months after Fotis took his own life, a judge granted what is called a nolla prosequi, which dismissed the murder charges against Fotis, ultimately ending the criminal case. This is not an acquittal, but an acknowledgement that the prosecution cannot continue without Fotis, and it allows the prosecutors 1 year to refile the charges, or it will be dismissed. It also lifts the gag order on all parties and frees witnesses from their obligations. Despite all of this and what seemed like an easy way out, Norm asked the court to continue the case so that he could attempt to clear Fotis's name. At a hearing on March 3, 2020, Norm claimed that Fotis was framed by someone and claimed that someone had murdered Jennifer, dumped her bloody clothes on his porch, which ultimately led to him dumping those items in the trash in those surveillance videos, which I have to say has just got to be the worst excuse that I have ever heard, and I'm not sure how he thought that anybody would believe him with that. If he wasn't involved and somebody just dropped all of these bloody clothes, call the police. Don't touch the clothing. Your prints wouldn't be on them. Your DNA wouldn't be on them. Like, make it make sense. It's a horrible excuse. So now Fotis is dead and the charges have been lifted. But Michelle and Fotis's good old buddy boy Kent remained charged after Fotis's death. However, the pandemic put a huge pause on the case. Michelle still claims her innocence and that she has nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance. She told the press in 2020, and I quote, "I know nothing about Jennifer Dulos' whereabouts or what may have happened to her." She also took to the press to speak on Fotis, saying, and I quote, "To those who are quick to judge people they do not know, let me say this. It is possible to misjudge others. Whether or not Fotis Dulos was capable of doing the things the police and prosecutors accused him of doing, I do not know. But based on what I learned in the last year, I think it was a mistake to have trusted him." Michelle's attorney filed a motion in March of 2020 in an attempt to get the trial moved out of Stamford and into Hartford. Her attorneys claim that having her trial in Stamford is an attempt to break her down by pulling her away from her family. In July of 2023, her attorney was still fighting to get the trial moved, claiming that the need to move locations is also due to the immense prejudicial effect that the pretrial publicity has had on the potential jurors in the Stamford and Norwalk County Judicial District. Now, earlier this year, Michelle was allowed to be taken off of her GPS ankle monitor while awaiting trial.
Today was just about loosening the restrictions on her house arrest. We have postponed until March 20th consideration of any other motions that will be pending or are already pending. Perhaps that will be when we discuss the change of venue, that is moving the case to the Hartford Judicial District. Other than that, it was more of a first court appearance. Michelle pled not guilty today on the most recent charges and asked for a jury. And until I've reviewed the material that were just given to me, and that's why I brought this large briefcase, I have no other comment because I don't know enough to say anything other than what I've said before. Michelle is innocent of these charges, and we plan to fight them through the courts. Thank you very much.
Can you share any reaction to the death of Fotis Dulos from Ms. Troconis?
No, I would say that that's not appropriate at this time. Thank you.
More recently, in August of 2023, Michelle's attorney filed for a motion to suppress in an attempt to get some of the evidence thrown out of the case. They are specifically working against cell phone data that was obtained by police and the search warrant for the Dulos' home in Farmington, where Michelle had lived with Fotis at the time. Her lawyers claim that the search at the house was intrusive and too broad, which allowed investigators access to everything in and around the house. He also says that there was no probable cause for the search in the first place, since it is believed that the attack happened in Jennifer's New Canaan home and not in the home in Farmington. The judge did not issue rulings on either motion and said he does not plan to until September.
They had the right to essentially strip this house, every corner of this house, based on this warrant without the slightest probable cause or limitation.
The state disagrees.
The idea that simply because the officers in executing this warrant may have seen things that weren't covered by the warrant, that somehow makes it overbroad. If that's the test, I would suggest that every search warrant ever executed would be overbroad.
To show how broad this was, they were just engaged in what I refer to in my memo as a fishing expedition.
An argument he plans to make over the coming months. In fact, there were so many different arguments the judge had to separate them with different hearings, saving other topics for a different day.
Was not going to attempt to handle a 1 mile long freight train without uncoupling the cars.
Which that personally has me a little worried, because if that is thrown out, right, wrong, or indifferent, it really does weaken the case, in my opinion, that they have against Michelle and her potential involvement. Michelle's involvement in the case seems to have people fairly back and forth now on what they believe. During her initial interviews, her story changed often. She has always said that she had absolutely nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance. Her family has also done many interviews claiming she could never do what they are saying, and that she absolutely does not know where Jennifer is. Fotis' note that he left behind in the car also specifically stated that Michelle and Kent had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance. Her attorneys have pointed out that she never was seen disposing of any of the evidence in the surveillance videos, and that the only reason her DNA was found on the bags was because Fotis had told her that he had spilled coffee in the truck that he was seen borrowing, and had told her to throw away the paper towels that he had handed her.
Did you see spilled coffee?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you see a coffee cup?
No, because I didn't look inside the car.
Did the paper towel smell like coffee?
No, I didn't smell it.
Well, but still, you're holding that coffee stinks.
But I hold the paper towel, but I didn't smell it. I didn't see the...
But even still, you didn't smell coffee?
No.
Do you think that maybe her ever-changing stories were in some way just trying to protect Fotis, and that she genuinely had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance? Or do you think that she knows more than she is saying and leading us to believe? I think it's also entirely possible that she didn't have anything to do with the murder itself or the disposal of Jennifer's body, but maybe she was a part of the cover-up. Not the crime, but the cover-up, because she loved Fotis and wanted to help him and got wrapped into that. So while she's saying, I don't know where Jennifer is, I had nothing to do with it, that is true. She didn't maybe have anything to do with the murder itself and the disposal itself, but maybe she did have something to do with the cleanup based on the DNA and the surveillance footage. Now let's switch gears for a second back over to Kent, good old attorney friend Kent. In October of 2022, Kent was taken back into custody after he was accused of tampering with his GPS ankle monitor. He was given a $1.5 million bond. He was unable to pay that, so he stayed in jail until December, when it was lowered and then he was placed on house arrest. In May of 2023, he was taken off of house arrest and is now free to leave his home, but he must still wear the GPS ankle monitor. No trial date has been set for him yet. In 2021, 48 Hours released an episode on Jennifer's disappearance. Michelle's two sisters, Claudia and Daniela, as well as her father, Dr. Carlos Troconis, gave an exclusive interview where they proclaimed her innocence. Claudia says in this interview, and I quote, "This has shattered our life because my sister is not the person they're saying, and she would never be capable of anything they've said that she has done." They also interviewed Fotis' sister Raina, as well as a friend of Jennifer's named Carrie, who was a spokesperson for the Farber family. Also, in 2021, a law was passed in Connecticut called Jennifer's Law, which expands the definition of domestic disputes and different levels of violence to include coercive control, which was defined as a pattern of behavior toward a person who is or has been an intimate partner or family or household member, which causes fear or harm to such person or restricts such person's freedom of action. Examples of this include stalking or cyberstalking, isolating a person from friends or family or other sources of support even, denying a person resources that are needed for independence, and manipulative control over a person's activities. This law was not only named after Jennifer Farber Dulos, but also after Jennifer Magnano, who was fatally shot in a murder self-harm in front of her children by her estranged husband Scott in 2007. Similar to the Dulos case, Scott and Jennifer were in the midst of a very toxic divorce and custody battle, and he was also ordered to stay away from the home where she and their 3 children lived. In addition to Jennifer's Law being enacted, as well as a 48-hour episode released in 2021, Lifetime also released a movie about Jennifer and her disappearance, because Lifetime loves to jump on the ripped from the headline cases. Actress Annabeth Gish played the role of Jennifer, and when discussing the movie, she said that they wanted it to be through a female lens, with the sensitivity of it, and not to make it too sensationalized or feel like it was exploiting the situation. She said that she wanted to honor Jennifer through this role. The movie is called Gone Mom: The Disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. It has now been 4 years since Jennifer was last seen, and unfortunately, Jennifer's body has still not been found to this day. Many people are afraid that any chances of finding Jennifer's body died with Fotis. Unless, of course, Kent and Michelle still know more than they are leading on. In September of 2022, a man named Sean Austin, who describes himself as a paranormal investigator, a psychic medium, and a demonologist, said that he found a blood-stained rug in the Farmington River, which is about 3 miles from where Fotis' home was. Sean uploaded a 2-hour-long live stream claiming that a spirit box mentioned the names of Troconis and Mawinnie and said that it was blatantly telling us to go to the river. So Sean and his crew were filming at the edge of the river while Farmington police were watching nearby with binoculars. Once the rug was brought out of the water, a member of the crew named Jared called 911. He said during the call that the rug had an imprint of a person completely bloody. He also said that his crew had been working on the Jennifer Dulos case by themselves. The rug was seized, but ultimately was ruled as a false alarm, and also nothing substantial to Jennifer's case. Although these false leads are hard for Jennifer's family, police told the public to continue with reporting anything suspicious or that might possibly be linked to the case. So if you or anyone have any information or any tips or any leads possible, you are urged to contact the New Canaan Police tip line at 203-594-3544. Also, guys, Jennifer's 5 children still don't have answers of what happened to their mother, and they have not been able to lay her remains to rest if she is in fact deceased, which I believe she is. So the more tips, the better. So please take a quick second, share the link to this video in your group chat with your friends, on your Facebook, on social media, on TikTok, wherever you can to get Jennifer's story heard. Because we always say the more eyes that are on a case and the more awareness that it generates, the more likely that someone will see it who may have heard something, who may have seen something, who may know something, and then a tip is generated, a lead is generated, and hopefully answers come after that. So please share this everywhere you can, guys. Thank you, Scentbird, for the sponsorship. Make sure to use my coupon code AnnieElise55 for 55% off your first month. Thanks so much for tuning in with me today. I will keep you updated. This is a case that I have followed so closely for years now, and now with the new motions and an answer coming in September regarding Michelle's charges, I'm really eager to see what comes of that and what happens next. So I will definitely be keeping you guys updated. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up on your way out if you appreciated the case coverage. Also, subscribe to the channel below by hitting that little subscribe button. It is totally completely free. It'll just make sure that you are notified next time I post a video on a new true crime case. When you log into YouTube, you will see my new one right there. So subscribe real quick. All right, guys, thanks again. And until the next one, stay safe. Bye.